Okay. All right, guys. Welcome, Bruchim Habayim. Thank you very much for joining us tonight for the learning of Hilchot Shabbat, a very important limud as we continue to learn Torah, especially on the holiday of Chanukah, which it is such an important thing to learn Torah on Chanukah. The whole holiday of Chanukah is about limud Torah Kedusha, the study of the Torah. That's what they wanted to make us stop doing. And we said, no, even if that meant risking our lives, we're going to learn Torah, Baruch Hashem. So that is a beautiful thing for us to learn tonight. We're learning for the Refuah Shlema of Kol Cholei Israel. Anybody who needs a Refuah Shlema should get it, should have it very soon, especially Rabbi Baruch ben Zivra, Rabbi Yosef ben Zahari, Mordechai ben Evelyn, Shmuel Moshe ben Penina, Shachar ben Chana, and anybody else that needs it. Yaakov Yisrael, Avram ben Chana, Esther Helen. We have any names you want to add? Elisha bat Neta, Yichya ben Fariba. May they all have a Refuah Shlema b'toch Shar Cholei Israel. Amen. Okay. So, being as this was a real attempt by the Goyim to get us to stop learning and to stop keeping Shabbat, so we fought them off, Baruch Hashem, and were able to learn Torah. And I wanted to spend tonight actually talking about not one of the Lamed Tet Melachot, but actually a gezerah of the Chachamim, a rabbinical rule that the rabbis imposed on us, and that is the Isur called Amira le'akum, which means instructing a Gentile to do melacha for us on Shabbat. The rabbis made a rule, welcome. The rabbis made a rule that we on Shabbat are not allowed to instruct Goyim to do melacha for us, period. They brought a pasuk that kind of implies this. That pasuk says, Kol melacha lo yaseh bahem, which means that no melacha will be done on Shabbat. Now that implies will be done, sounds like afilu alidei akum, even if it's not you who's doing the work, but it's a goy who's doing the work. So you should not have a goy do work for you on Shabbat. Afilu alidei akum, even through a Gentile. Now, this again is just a hint to the concept, but in truth, it's not a Torah violation. It's a rabbinic rule. It's what we call a shvut. Shvut means it's a rule that the rabbis pushed for us they created this rule for us in order to sanctify and to keep the sanctity of Shabbat. There are multiple reasons that are given for this. The first reason is that if you were to have a goy do everything for you on Shabbat, so you can have the goy, do anything you want. Turn on the light, turn off the light, heat up the food, take out the food, open your business, close your business, sell for you, do whatever you need, right? You could basically throw Shabbat out the window by having the goy take care of every single thing that you need. You understand? So therefore, the rabbis made a rule that no, we don't allow that to happen because your Shabbat is going to go down the drain. So being that that's the case, it's important to make sure that we don't instruct Goyim to do melacha for us on Shabbat. Now, there's another important point to talk about, which is part 2, which actually is part 1. Even if you don't instruct the Goy to do something, before mentioning the idea that you cannot instruct the Goy to do a melacha for you on Shabbat, we should have mentioned actually the idea that even if a Goy does something for you, and he decided to do it, you didn't ask him to do it. He did it on his own. Chazal made another rule, which is that you may not benefit from any melacha that a Goy does for you on Shabbat, even in the event that you did not ask him to do it. Okay? So that is an interesting thing. The rabbis were afraid that if you are allowed to benefit from what he does for you on Shabbat, then you will come to ask him to do it, and you're going to be using this goy for everything on Shabbat. So therefore, there are 2 parts to this prohibition. You may not instruct the goy, that's number 1. Number two, you may not benefit from the goy, even in the event that you did not instruct him to do anything. Okay, so it's two separate prohibitions. I hope it's clear. Okay, so now what this would mean is, let's say that a goy sees that you are looking for some food for your animal, right? So the goy pulls a few blades of grass out of the ground to give it to your cow, let's say. So the goy is specifically doing a melacha, which you may not do on Shabbat. He's doing it for you to help you. Chazal said you're not allowed to benefit from what the goy did for you. Since it was done for you, you may not benefit for it. So if, let's say, a person is sitting in a room and the room is pitch black, he cannot see anything. The goy walks in and turns on the light for this fellow. So that fellow may not benefit from that light that was turned on for him. Why? Because that's the violation of benefiting from the labor of a Gentile that was done for a Jew on Shabbat. You may not benefit from it. Okay, clear? Yes.
Okay, so two different things. One thing is, what if you walk by somewhere and the light sensors turn on?
Okay, that's a totally different thing. We're not talking about that right
And then,
now.
okay, so then the other thing is that what if, like, in your apartment building, whatever, your housekeeper left the light on and she left and it's Shabbat. Could you ask your doorman to come in
Okay,
and
so
say,
we're gonna get to these
my
things.
children are tired?
We're gonna get there. Let's lay down the groundwork first, and then we'll ask you that. Okay? Yes.
With the examples that you just gave. So that animal, like, okay, you can benefit from it, but there's not, like, there isn't anything in that moment that you're doing to benefit from it. So what do you?
He's feeding your animal.
No, like, let's say you walk in and you catch, let's say like your boy work or whatever, feeding your animal. Okay, you don't want it to happen, you can't benefit from it.
No, the point is he just pulled out some, I don't know, he just didn't, basically anytime, let's say that there's a place where there is no eruv and it's a real public domain. And the goy is now bringing your animal water, and he had to draw it from a well, which is a private domain, and he put it into a public domain. So the goy just drew water from the well, and therefore he did the action of carrying on Shabbat for you, for your animal. It's a problem. You can't let your animal drink from it. You understand?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Clear? Okay. So the whole concept of Shabbos goy, right? The idea that I can just have a goy do whatever I want is a very, very incorrect concept, right? So it's important to be aware of that. Okay, so that's important to be aware that you can't just benefit from what a goy does. Now, so the first explanation we said is because it'll make melacha on Shabbat almost like a non-issue. The goy will do this, the goy will do that, I'll have him do this, have him do that, and whatever, that's it. There's no more Shabbat. Another point is that Chazal said, we have in the Kiddush that we say every Shabbat morning, which means that what's special about Shabbat is that you treat it in a way that you don't deal with your personal dealings, meaning your business dealings, and you don't do the same things that you would ordinarily do on a weekday on Shabbat. And you don't speak the same way that you would normally speak on a weekday on Shabbat. You don't do that. So when you start talking about melachot, that's called speaking about weekday activity. So even if you're telling a goy to do it, you're speaking about weekday activity on Shabbat, and that's not proper. You're also being involved and thinking about, which you're allowed to think about, but you're preoccupied with weekday issues. That's called mimtzochef tzecha. You're trying to deal with your personal weekday issues on Shabbat, which is wrong. And one more point, which is very important, is that the rabbis added another kind of, punch in the stomach over here, which is the rabbis gave the goy, which ordinarily the goy does not have this ability, but legal ability, They gave a goy the legal status of a shaliach, which means an agent, an emissary. Now, normally, the power of a shaliach is that the hand of the shaliach is the hand of the one who's sending him. So, for example, if a person wants to go get engaged to a certain girl, he could tell his friend, "I'm appointing you my messenger, and you are going to go and give this ring to this girl and say, Hariyat Mekudeshet to so and so, and you are going to now be engaged to so and so. And even though it's not my hand putting the ring on her finger, it's your hand, but it's as if I did it. That's the power of a shaliach, of a messenger, that his hand is the hand of the one who sent him. So if the goy has the status of a shaliach, so now when the goy is doing the melacha, it's as though I'm the one who's doing the melacha. And that's really bad, because that would basically be the same thing as me doing work on Shabbat or any melacha on Shabbat. That's the issue. Okay. So therefore, he's considered to be my shaliach, and that's a big problem on Shabbat. Now, let's talk about some of the important things that we need to understand about where the misconception of the Shabbos goy came from. And the hint, and guys, think about it this way: the idea that you can just hint, right, is also, now that we've learned these basic rules, the idea that you could just hint for the goy to do something is also absurd. Even if I say nothing and the goy turns on the light for me in the room, I have to walk out, right? Because I can't benefit from it. So then where's the concept? It's dark in here. And then the goy turns it on for me and everyone thinks that's fine. Where's that come from? What's the idea? So the answer is that there are certain things in halakha that the rabbis did not consider to be halachic benefit. What is halachic benefit? When the goy creates something for you, he creates something for you that wasn't here before. He does something for you that totally changes your present state. It really changes everything for you. Beforehand, you couldn't do this, and now that he did this, now you could do this. I'll be a little more clear in a minute. However, if he merely takes away something that was bothering you, okay? So he's not creating something for you, he's removing a problem for you. Or B, you were able to do something before. It's just that he's enhancing for you the ability that you were able to do before. That in halacha is not called a halachic benefit. So what this means is, if, let's say, for example, I'm trying to go to sleep in my room, but the light is on, okay? The light is preventing me from going to sleep. It's bothering me, right? So if, let's say, the goy were to walk in by himself and turn off the light because he knows I'm trying to go to sleep and he sees I'm having a hard time and he turns off the light, would that be considered halachic benefit?
No.
The answer is no. Why? Because he's taking away something that is bothering me. It's something which is preventing me from falling asleep. So in halakha, that's not called benefit. Okay. Therefore, what's left? Which prohibition do I have left? It's not called benefiting. So if he does it by himself, it's fine. But there's another prohibition which we started off with, which is that you cannot instruct a goy to do melacha for you. So over here, shutting off a light would be considered a melacha. It's kibui, it's extinguishing right, the light. So in that case, the only thing that I have left is that I may not instruct him to shut off the light. Okay. So I could benefit from it, but I can't instruct him to shut off the light. So then how do I get around that? Okay, so then don't instruct him, but hint. Say, I just can't fall asleep. I can't fall asleep in this room. Okay? And then he hopefully will understand that you're trying to get him to turn off the light. Okay? That would be okay. Why is that okay? Because the first question you have to ask is this halachically called benefiting or not? If the answer to that question is that yes, it is called benefiting, then it doesn't matter. You could hint from morning till night. It's not going to make it permissible. Even if you say nothing, you can't benefit from it, right? Because it's called halachically benefiting. The rabbi said, you may not benefit from what a goy does for you on Shabbat, period. But if it's not called halachically benefiting, so then the only thing that remains is the prohibition of instructing him to do the melacha. Okay, so then don't instruct him. You can hint. So what is called something that is not a halachic benefit? So again, something that is preventing you from enjoying Shabbat. For example, the lights on. I remember one time when we were living in Brooklyn, we had a stereo on the ground, on the floor, and I've accident kicked on the stereo, and it started blasting like Shabbat afternoon Miami Boys Choir, like just full blast. It was really embarrassing. So such a thing, you would be allowed to hint to a goy, this thing is way too loud, right? Because when he shuts it off, the poskim say that's not called halachically creating for you something new. It's not called benefiting from you. It's true that you are benefiting in that now you don't have blasting music, right, on Shabbat, but halakha doesn't view that as the kind of benefit the rabbis made prohibited. So all that remains left is that you cannot instruct him. Okay, don't instruct him, hint to him. Very good. Another important halakha like this. So again, the example we gave is if it's pitch black in the room and you can't see anything, and then this guy goes and turns it on for you, said, you cannot enjoy that, you have to walk away. Why? Because of the fact that is called benefiting. You cannot benefit from what the goy does on Shabbat. But let's talk about a situation where you were able to see already. Let's say, for example, Shabbat afternoon, maybe later in the afternoon, there's definitely some sunlight in the room. I can read if I would like to, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult. It's more challenging because there isn't really that much light. It's here, but it's hard to do. Okay, no problem. So what's the idea now? What would we say if a goy sees my predicament, walks into the room, and switches on the light? Would that be called halachically benefiting? Poskim say no. That's not called benefiting. You know why? Because the goy didn't really change much for you. He just made it easier for you to do what you were already able to do. That's called enhancing. Whenever the goy enhances your present situation, that enhancement is not considered a halachic benefit. And for that reason, if he does that for you, you do not have to walk out of the room because of the fact that he's merely enhancing a situation that you were already able to read, and therefore he's just enhancing your present situation. So therefore, being that halachically it's not called benefiting, in the event that you desire that he should do this, so what's the only problem that remains? You cannot instruct him to turn on a light for you. That's Amira la'akum. You can't do that. Okay, so but if I hint that he should turn on the light for me, in this case, remember, in this case, why this case? Because the type of benefit that I'd be getting from him is not halachically called benefit, right? So therefore, since it's not halachically benefiting, if the only problem that remains is that I am not allowed to instruct him to do it, so then don't instruct him, hint to him. But the same exact scenario in a room that was pitch black, where he's not just enhancing, he's creating for me the opportunity, the ability to read something. So that is very clearly a benefit, and therefore you cannot forget about hinting. You cannot even benefit, even if you said nothing. Is it clear? Are these differences clear? 100%? Yes, what's your question?
If someone were to be like spending Shabbat in like a non-religious home, and let's just say at night they turn off all the lights, you go to sleep, and then in the morning before you wake up, they turn all the lights on.
Okay.
You know that it was turned on by like a Jew.
Yeah.
And now you're sitting in the kitchen with that light on.
Look, if this is where you are and there's nowhere else to go, you don't have to spend the Shabbat on the street, because the Jewish people do that. What can you do? Unfortunately, it's a situation, right? It is what it is. But I'm saying, when it comes to a goy, let's say that works in your house, and you can tell him what to do. Basically, you say, "Hey, don't turn on the light right now." You have to protest and say, "Don't do that."
Yeah.
Right? Because he's doing it for you. It's a problem. Understand? You have to stop him.
But if they're doing it for the house in general, but let's just,
Let's
like
do it
if
for
I
a
see a
Jew.
family's house, for example, I'm saying like, and they're turning the light back on. And if they turn it off.
What are you
at
talking
night-
about now? Jew or going?
Talking about a Jew.
A Jew.
They're not shomer Shabbat.
Okay, good.
So as in like, you're not there to really instruct them. They're gonna turn the light off and then they're gonna turn it back on in the morning. You're not even there. You're gonna wake up and there's gonna be light back on.
Okay, so I'm saying a non-Shomer Shabbat house is a different situation, right? That's if this is the only place that you have to be, you don't have to spend Shabbat on the street. You understand? That's my point. But it is what it is. But we're talking about now a goy that you are able to tell him you want this and you don't want that. So if he comes to turn on the light for you in a pitch black room, you have to say, sorry, I can't do that right now. You can't do that right now because that would be a benefit from the goy for you. Now, if let's say the goy himself needs to see something on his own, so he's doing it for himself, who cares? He'll do whatever he wants, right? But I mean, for the most part. But the point is that if he's doing it for you, you gotta stop him.
What if by telling him, oh, don't do that, they turn it back off? Then can you be in that room?
Definitely, you can be in that room, sure. But I mean, you don't want to. You're saying they already turned it on.
Like sometimes the house cleaner will come in my room, turn something on. I'll be like, oh, like, can't be on, and then she'll close it back off. But now,
So no, you don't want to tell them to turn it off either. You understand?
no, I just say,
Yeah.
oh, don't turn it on. Like, it shouldn't be turned on. Okay, whatever.
Yeah. In other words, if they already did it,
Complicated, I
if it's for themselves, then they don't have to say anything. But if they did it for you, say, hey, stop.
Well, yeah,
You would
she's
have
doing it
to-
for herself. Okay,
yeah.
so that's the-
If she's doing it for herself, then forget it. It's fine. No issue, no problem. You happen to benefit from it. If she's doing it for you, that's a problem. You understand? Yeah, sorry.
So just to play off what you said, let's say a boy comes in and like turns on the light, and like that's a benefit. Can you tell her to don't turn it off?
Why did she turn on the light? Did she turn on the light?
Let's say he was looking for something, he just turn on the light.
Okay, so if he turned on the light for himself, so first of all, remember, if you happen to have been there already and you already were able to see in this room.
Something you were not able to see.
Okay, so if it was pitch black and they did it for you, it's a problem. If it was pitch black and they turned it on for themselves, then now you could say, look, just leave it on. Yeah, leave it on. Don't turn it on.
And then also, like, let's say you have like a non-religious relative come over on Shabbat,
Right?
and they turn on the light, let's say in the bathroom.
Okay.
So then, like, if an issue going with that, like, let's say you have like a night light in the bathroom.
Okay, so there you go. So you were able to see anyway,
Okay.
right? You were able to see anyway. So they just unfortunately enhanced your seeing. Now, I want to just comment on that. Okay. It's a good idea to leave the light on in the bathroom for people. Okay.
That's what we
It's a
did.
it's a good idea.
What
and-
about like air conditioning? Like, we
What?
have this night when my aunt will come over and it's hot in the summer, she'll just-
Okay, so let's address. So there's two questions going on. We were talking about goyim, and then there's unfortunately non-observant Jews. So they kind of overlap in certain ways, but sometimes the rules are different. So let's take it step by step. Let's stick with goyim for now, and then we'll get to the other stuff too. Bli neder. Do you have a question too? Yeah. Okay.
So what if you leave the lights on in a hotel room Friday afternoon? You go to shul, you come back, the housekeeper came, shut all the lights
In the hotel room.
and close the we turn off the AC or the heater, whatever it was. And you're planning to have party and dinner and you
Okay. Good question. That's a good question. So, so the housekeeper messed you over, basically, right? The housekeeping in your hotel, right? Okay. So, so there's going to be an important discussion about this. In a nutshell, you want to find what. Let me try and explain. There are a lot of different heterim when it's important to know what's forbidden midoraita and what's forbidden midorabbanan. If you remember, we spoke about this. Okay, when something is forbidden midoraita, it's going to be very hard to be lenient to ask a goy to do something. Okay, there is one opinion, which was the opinion of the Baal Hayitur. He held that you're allowed to ask a goy to even do something that's forbidden for you midoraita. For example, he held that if your Shabbat table is totally pitch black now, and you need a goy to light a fire for you so you can see, he held no problem. It's for a mitzvah, it's okay. Problem is, not everybody agreed with him. Most rabbis disagreed with the Baalei Torah on that one. So the question is going to be, can you find something that instead of it being forbidden midoraita, it'll only be forbidden midorabanan? Why is this so important? Let's introduce the concept right now while we're on the subject. This is called a shvut dishvut b'mekom mitzvah. Okay? Whenever you want a goy, it's a very important halakha to know. Whenever you want a goy to do something that is prohibited to you only midirabanan, okay? So then you can ask the goy outright, straightforward, please do this for me. Okay? That whenever the violation that you cannot do is only prohibited midirabanan, which means rabbinically. Let's say, for example, we spoke about when we learned Melechet Kotzer, the concept that you're not allowed to climb up a tree on Shabbat. Let's say that it's the holy day of Rosh Hashanah, the head of the new year, and some genius kid grabbed the shul shofar and threw it on top of a tree. Okay? So that's great, right? He took the shofar and threw it on top of the tree. So now everyone's in a predicament because it's a mitzvah to hear shofar on Rosh Hashanah. On the other hand, you can't climb up a tree on Yom Tov. It's asur. You learned that. What?
You sound like that actually happened.
It probably has happened. It hasn't happened to me, thank God. But all the poskim talk about this case. So it sounds like some genius decided to do that at some point. And now the question is, well, what do you do? The answer is, since climbing up a tree for us, when we learned this halakha, we said that this is a rabbinic rule. The rabbis made up this rule in order that you should not come to take things off the tree. So therefore, the whole problem to begin with is rabbinic. So the rabbis that told us that we're not allowed to instruct a goy, that's also a rabbinic rule. The terminology is a shvut. Shvut means something they said don't do in order to safeguard the holiness of Shabbat. So over here, it's a double shvut. It's a shvut that you can't instruct a goy to do something. It's also a shvut that you can't climb up a tree. So you're asking a goy to do something which for you is only a rabbinic rule, that you cannot do that. So that, for the sake of a mitzvah, like blowing shofar on Rosh Hashanah, or if let's say there was another important thing, like somebody was really suffering, or maybe there was a question of some illness, so you would definitely be allowed to instruct a goy, meaning to openly tell the goy, Mr. Goy, please climb up the tree and get the shofar for me, okay? So too over here. If you have a situation in a hotel that, let's say, for example, let's say the lights in the room are newer LED lights, which we would say are only a problem either Rabbanat, let's just say for argument's sake. So then you would be able to ask the goy, for the sake of your mitzvah of having Shabbat dinner, you'd ask the goy to turn on the lights for you. Why is that okay? Because that would be a shvut d'shvut b'mekom mitzvah, which means a rabbinical violation, to do a rabbinical violation for the purposes of a mitzvah, which is having Shabbat dinner, right? Which is a big mitzvah to have that dinner.
Would we hint it at that moment?
No hint, just outright, because the whole thing is rabbinic. You're asking the goy to do something which, even if you yourself would do it, it would not be a violation midoraita. It would only be midirabanan. Big, important, huge halakha. Very important halakha. Yes.
Does this apply to ask mental also?
Yes.
Same thing?
Yes. Yes. That's correct.
Straight out ask them.
So again, the thing is like this. You don't want to put yourself in a situation where you need to. You want to try and find a way where you would not have to. But for a number of reasons, this being one of them, that would be okay. So if you were stuck and you didn't have a way of getting into your room, then absolutely you can go to the front desk and simply tell them, I can't do this on Shabbat. Can you please do it for me? And they would do it for you.
Before Shabbat starts, by the way, I'm Jewish, I observe the Sabbath, and then they already know. they have to, as soon as they see you in the lobby, they escort you to your room and they do it for you.
Yeah, that's, it's better. It's better. Ideally, you want to figure out a way that you don't need them at all. That's ideally. There's certain things you could do. I've seen certain videos that you're able to, with stuff, you could pull shtick that you should need them. That's ideal. There are some hotels out there that still have actual keys, which I don't know if, how relevant that is anymore, but it's out there. Yeah. You have a question?
So lights, like. is that-
That's what I'm saying. So the regular light bulb, according to many, the regular old-fashioned light bulb with the metal rod that gets red hot, that we say is doraita, problem. But the LED lights, right? The LED lights that they don't have a metal rod inside of them that gets red hot. So a lot of poskim hold that's only rabbinically prohibited. Let's say appliances are rabbinically prohibited. They're not, according to most. So therefore, you would be able to ask a goy to, let's say, let's say there was a power outage. You needed the goy to turn back on your chalent pot. It's already Shabbat morning. You just want to keep it hot. So that would be, you'd have a heter to do that because it's a shvut d'shvut. It's a rabbinic violation, which is asking a goy to do something for you. And what are you asking the goy to do? Something which itself is just a rabbinic violation for the purposes of a mitzvah or for the purposes of a small amount of illness or some kind of suffering. You could ask a goy to do anything rabbinic in those cases.
What about pulling out from a plug?
Pulling out from a plug. Pulling a plug out of the wall?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, why would you want him to do that?
If it's left, you don't need any.
Again, we're talking about cases of need.
I've asked you this question, but now that we're like under.
Yeah.
Before I didn't understand, I just went by your answer, which is fine.
Okay.
But now that I'm like learning it, it's nice to apply it. So like.
Sure.
So let's say like you were hosting and you were using the electric blech.
You mean the hot plate?
The hot, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, but now, and this plugs in.
Okay.
And you don't need it anymore. And you
Okay.
just want your cleaning lady or whatever to put it away.
Okay. So you want to instruct her to do that.
Technically you would just say, I don't need this anymore. But then sometimes they're like, is it okay if I plug it out? Because they don't know, they want to know like, what do you mean? Like, because they know you're observant, they don't know if you can touch it or not.
Right.
So they'll be like, oh, so is it okay if I pull it out?
Right.
And you're just like, yeah, no.
So, right. So, okay. So there's two things that you have to remember. If it's shvut d'shvut b'makom mitzvah, if it's for the sake of a mitzvah or there's suffering involved or there's some kind of illness that we're trying to prevent, that you could say outright. Here, it sounds like it's just for the convenience of having this thing unplugged, right? Now, if for some reason it's bothering you, so then we said, when a goy does something to remove that which is bothering you, we say, okay, that's something which you are allowed to benefit from because it's not like a creative benefit. That's like turning off the light. It's like turning off the stereos. It's unplugging the thing. So we said, okay, that you could benefit if they do it on their own. Can you instruct them? No, right? So what could you do? You could hint in that case. Understand? Because it's not really called benefiting. Can you outright instruct them? Not really. It's true, it's probably only rabbinic, but would you categorize that as for the sake of a mitzvah, like the shofar on the tree? Or is it like some kind of real suffering going on over here?
So for the shvut,
There's a list. Is it for a mitzvah? Is it for suffering that somebody's suffering? Is it for some kind of illness that's going on? Right? That's when the shvut halacha kicks in. But just like that, shvut isn't okay. Right? Sorry, yeah.
What's the situation where you feel allowed to do shvut?
Yes. So when it's bimkom mitzvah, which means that you're asking the goy to do something that's prohibited rabbinically for the sake of a mitzvah. let's say that you're asking the goy to do something that's prohibited rabbinically for some kind of suffering that you're trying to prevent, right, from somebody. Or if somebody has a certain minor illness, right? Let's say, for example, someone is he needs medicine, right? You want the goy to go get him some medicine. So going to buy medicine is only prohibited rabbinically. The act of buying and selling is rabbinically prohibited. So you want the goy to do that for you, for the sake of this guy taking medicine because he needs it. Okay, you're allowed to do that, right? Shvut t'shvut, v'kom miktzat choli. Okay. Clear?
I'm sorry. How do we know what is like rabbinically? Because why would clients consider?
So yeah, so sometimes it's going to be harder to know whether it is rabbinically or not. It's worthwhile to have always like a certain few set, like the Rabbi Ribiat's books at home, the Lamed Tetlachot. He'll usually always tell you if it's either Rabbanan or Doraita. You can just look it up and see. It's in English, so it's easy to read. Okay, fine. So,
Can I ask one more question?
sure.
So for removing a problem, like let's say you need your light turned off, and you want to hint. You can't instruct him directly, fine, but you could hint. How can you hint? Like, can you?
I can't sleep in this room. It's impossible to sleep here.
Right. So let's say the person has no idea. Okay, so one of our neighbors sometimes helps us, so he already knows that we keep Shabbat and we can't touch the light. So it's happened where like my kids went and turned on my bedroom light. So I knocked. I'm like, so sorry. And he's running. What do you need? Whatever you need. I'm like, no, my kids like turned on my bedroom light and now it's just on. Like I can't.
Right.
That's it. And he
knows.
He's
Good.
Fine.
Great.
But let's say there's a person who has no idea what you're talking about. Are you allowed to say, I'm Jewish and I observe Shabbat and I'm not allowed to touch my light and my kids turned on my light?
That's still hinting.
And I can't sleep. That's it.
That's still hinting.
That's still hinting. Like
Yeah.
explaining the situation.
You didn't tell him, please go please go turn it off.
Right.
It's still hinting.
What about when when you do that and they ask you, do you want me to turn off the light?
Right.
What do you say?
Again, I can't sleep. I can't sleep in the room.
I'm not allowed to tell you to do it.
That's already once you talk about telling you to do it, or that's already like what we call like, that's already expressly stating what you're interested in. You're like inches away from the actual instruction. You see what I'm saying? It's more direct. It's not as direct as instructing, but it's close. Like for example, if you would say, whoever shuts off the light in my room, right, will be taken care of after Shabbat, right? So again, you didn't instruct that person, but you're very clearly expressing what you want. You understand? The hint is just like hoping they figure it out. But you're right, sometimes they have a hard time figuring out what you're, because it's like so weird for them. What? Yeah. So, yeah, I know what you mean. Yes.
So is it ever possible to tell a boy before Shabbat, like, listen, if this stuff happens, I need you to do this? Are you allowed to tell them before Shabbat?
So, yeah, I mean, before Shabbat already, they talk about it. You're not supposed to instruct going before Shabbat to do melacha for you on Shabbat, right? That's also forbidden. But hopefully you can explain to them your situation, explain to them what's going on, and they'll figure out, oh, she can't do it, so therefore she'll do it for you. You know? Okay, so that's a different story. Going to shul, we're going to learn Zal Shem is different because of what we call tzorchei tzibur, which means for the sake of the community, it's a little different than just by a private person's own. Correct. That's right. That's 100% right. Okay. Okay, good. So That's very important to be aware of. The idea of when is hinting okay and when is hinting not okay. So we said hinting is okay if you're trying to prevent something from bothering, take away something which is bothering you, preventing a loss. Right? If you're going to, let's say the fridge is broken and the food is going to spoil, and you need the guy to, I guess, deal with it. So that's preventing a loss. That's also okay to hint that the guy should help with that, or preventing suffering, like we said, it's hard to go to sleep with the light on. Enhancing what?
Sorry, so if I left my refrigerator light on and I need a boy to turn it off, I don't need to hint, I could just instruct directly,
Go to turn off the light, or just go to shut the door.
turn off the,
You can have him just shut the door.
no, because if I open, then I won't be able to use my fridge for Shabbat, and that would cause separately, that would cause.
So you have a separate issue. You need to use the fridge also.
Yeah,
So okay, so that's, in other words, there's two. You're right. We'll get to that. We'll get to that in a minute. We'll get there in just a second.
that,
You're saying,
the shmut,
so it depends what kind of light you've got in the fridge, right? If you have a light that's a real light bulb, like the old refrigerators used to have, so then that would be more. If they're turning on the light, that would be a d'oraita. Turning off the light would probably be d'rabanan, so you'd be okay.
but if it's a.
No, I'm saying even a regular light bulb. Let's make a long story short. If you need the goy to shut off your light, so then there's reason to allow that.
Direct.
Probably, but we'll get to it. We'll get to it shortly. I'll talk about it very, very soon. Okay. I want to talk about another important halacha when it comes to a goy on Shabbat. If you remember, we learned about the halacha called psik reisha. Who remembers what psik reisha means? Anybody?
Cutting the chicken's head off.
Good, very good. It's cutting the chicken's head off. So what's an example of psik reisha? Who remembers?
Cheering them on.
Good. Chair on the lawn, very good. But not just like a heavy chair. And you know for a fact that when you pull that chair on the lawn, for a fact, this chair is going to make a ditch, right? So we said that would be something that you cannot do if it's the kind of thing that making a ditch would be in some way beneficial for you. Maybe you could, plant a seed in there or something like that. So we say that's a problem. That's a psik reisha, right? Very bad. However, when it comes to a goy, you're allowed to ask a goy on Shabbat. Magen Avraham holds you're allowed to ask a goy on Shabbat to do something that is forbidden to you because it's a psik reisha. For example, let's say you left the light in the refrigerator on, and you want to open up the door of the refrigerator to get something, right? So you are simply trying to open the door. The result of you opening the door is the light gets turned on. So can you open the door? No, because you're not allowed to do something that's a psik reisha, right? However, you can tell a goy to open the door. Why? Because the goy doesn't have any problem. We don't care about, it's very safe to assume the goy had absolutely no intention of turning on the light, just like you don't have an intention to turn on the light. It's just that for you, we say since the act of opening a door turns on a light, so we view it as if it's your intention, but the goy doesn't have that intention, right? We don't say we view it as if the goy had that in mind. He's just trying to help you open a door. The result is the light turns on. You have no problem to ask a goy to do something which is forbidden by dint of being a psik reisha. Okay? So therefore, you can ask him to turn on, to open up the door, and the light will turn on. That's okay. You can ask him to open up the door to a car. You left your groceries in the car, and the light of the door of the car will turn on, no problem. Anything that is prohibited just because it's a psik reisha, you are allowed to ask a goy to do. It's very important to be aware of that halacha. Okay? So you would be allowed to ask the goy to drag that chair across the lawn. You would be allowed to Let's see. What else? I mean, endless example. You'd be allowed to ask a goy to, let's say that you have, one second, let's say you have a hot water urn that's connected to, or hot water in general, I guess, that's connected to a tank. So some poskim say you can ask the goy to turn on the hot water. Why? Because what's the problem with hot water? He's trying to remove hot water from the tank right now. The problem is that there's new cold water going into the tank and getting cooked. So you can't do that because that's obsecration, right? You're having in mind to take out hot water right now. The result of what you're doing is cold water goes in and it gets cooked. So you can't do that. But to ask a goy would be okay. Cool. Right? That's good.
You can tell them to turn on the back of the kids.
Yeah, there you go.
That's really great. Like the long Shabbases where like once you show you want to bathe them.
Right.
Saturday, like, turn on the back and just.
Well, bathing in general is a separate thing, right? Bathing is a separate prohibition. I'm saying bathing in general is a separate prohibition. You can't, it depends on the age of the kids. You know what I'm saying? If they're trainable age already, you can't do that. But
There's lots of like boilers nowadays though that are electric. Like it's not like a tank.
uh-huh.
Like,
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we had to change our boiler.
Right.
And they're like, oh, get this, like it's better, it's electric, whatever. And then after we put it, we realized that like on Chagim we can't use it now because there's no. Like,
What does the electric boiler do?
As soon as you turn on the hot water,
Yeah.
water will run through it, and will heat it up, and it'll come. It's instantaneous. There's no reserve. There's no like. Hot
Meaning
water.
it's like, okay, so you open up the water and the other one immediately comes in.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as a regular tank, no?
That's well, you have like a regular tank. You have like reserve. Like you have,
True.
Water is still being heated though from your
and
action.
it only comes in after. Like this is directly. You also turn on the electric. Like it just turns on.
Okay, I don't know exactly
Yeah, I know.
the details of it, but I
Yeah.
hear what you're saying.
It's like
We
a
have to look
whole
into
new-
it.
Yeah.
But I guess the classic boiler that it's simply by you taking out hot water, new cold water comes in. So we obviously can't do that ourselves on Shabbat. But to ask a goy, I believe I saw the Alkut Yosef and others say that that's okay because that is asking him to do a psikration. You're allowed to do that on Shabbat.
You
Okay.
could ask, let's say you have like a nanny and you want them to bathe your child to clean them and everything. Is that okay?
So again, bathing depends,
They do everything for you.
well,
If they like take care of your baby or your, like, I don't know, like,
yeah. So technically, if the goy turns on the water, then yeah, that'd be okay. You yourself can bathe the baby. I mean, there is a way of,
not for on Shabbat, it's like,
you're not
you're
supposed
not
to,
allowed to squeeze.
correct, you're not allowed to squeeze, you're not allowed to bathe in general. But if a baby got dirty and you need to do that, then you have reason to be allowed to do that.
But if you
For
just give
younger
them a
kids.
shower because you always give them a shower every day.
So then you shouldn't do that. Yeah. Okay, good. Very good. Time is it? 46. Okay, we have still a few minutes. We're good? Okay. So we spoke about the idea that you can do that. Another very important halakha, okay, is the halakha about being able to ask a goy to do something for you, ben hashmashot. Okay. Ben hashmashot, it says something very interesting. It says that during the period of ben hashmashot, which means 13 and a half minutes after sunset. Okay, that means when sunset hits, you have 13 and a half minutes afterwards. That's called Ben Hashmashot, in between the suns, which means in between sunset and nightfall. 13 and a half minutes, very important. So the idea is the rabbis that made all of these rules, rabbinic rules, they did not make them apply during Ben Hashmashot. Now, for all intents and purposes, the halakha that applies most from that rule, which I just told you, is the action of instructing a goy to do something for you. The whole concept of instructing a goy to do that prohibits instructing a goy to do something for you does not take effect until Ben Hashmashot is over. So if, let's say, sunset already hits, you already lit candles, people in shul already said they're singing Hilchot and whatever, and you just realized you did not turn off the light in the refrigerator, right? So you still have the ability to go and ask a goy, no problem, to turn off the light in your refrigerator or to do anything else that you need. Because the rule of asking a goy that prohibits you to ask a goy to do something for you on Shabbat did not take effect at Ben Hashmashot. It only takes effect after Ben Hashmashot. This happened to me the first Shabbat that my wife and I were ever spending Shabbat at home for the first time. We forgot to turn off the light in the fridge, and Baruch Hashem, it was early Shabbat. I mean to say, I accepted Shabbat early, but it was still quite some time until Ben Hashmashot, and I came home. She said, I don't know what to do. Very sad. The light in the fridge is on. The whole Shabbat meal is in the fridge. Okay, no problem. I go outside, find the first guy I see. His name was Mohammed. I still remember to this day. And I invited him up, and he turned off the light in my fridge. And it's all good. Why? Because it was still Ben Hashmashot. And Ben Hashmashot, you're allowed to ask a goy. Okay, very good. What? That is, I'm talking about when the 18 minutes are over, and now it's sunset. So you have 13 and a half minutes after sunset.
So
That's called Ben
so
Hashmashot.
there's 18 minutes.
Let's keep things simple. Sunset is when Shabbat is 100% kicked in, right? But it's still before nightfall. You have 13 and a half minutes to ask a goy. Cool?
So none of the,
So it's after the 18 minutes.
yes,
Correct.
none of the rabbinic prohibitions apply during Ben Hashmashot.
So that's the general statement, which is indeed the halakha. But the poskim grapple over which rules are in and which rules are out. So let's not get into that. But one thing that everybody agrees is that you could still ask a goy to do stuff for you.
But even after, you could have hinted somebody to turn off their refrigerator, no?
Correct. Indeed. First of all, I could ask him to open the door because it would be a psikresha.
Right.
And then there's the light. I can't open and close my door like this, right? And hopefully he'll figure out to shut it off.
He's just saying the problem with.
Right.
But then,
But like this, I was able to instruct him because it was still Ben Hashmashot.
so if you left, so if you left like a fire on the stove on, you could hint to goy to turn it off.
Even on Shabbat.
Yeah.
Now I'm talking about Ben Hashmashot, you could tell
You
him
can
to.
instruct,
Yeah.
But I'm just like talking about like real fire, because that's how I need to understand it in my head, like.
Real fire, but again, there has to be some kind of suffering or some kind of
But I thought that was No.
preventing
Or let's say. you
damage,
provide
preventing
I
suffering.
thought that was for shul, the shul.
No, even for, in other words, why are you, what the goy is you're right, the goy is removing something from you, right? Something that's bothering you, like the light is preventing you from going to sleep, right? What is the problem with this fire being on? Is it making the house too hot, maybe? There has to be a reason that you need it up.
Okay, fine, you need a reason.
Yeah,
Okay, fine.
I don't like that is not a reason. You understand? It
But
has
for
to
the
be
shvut, you could tell directly.
correct.
That's what we're talking about. So then,
I'm talking about Ben Hashmashal.
right, no, I know,
Right.
I was asking,
Okay.
sorry.
Yeah, okay.
No, because we're talking about the refrigerator, so I was like,
Okay, so shvut to shvut, yes, you
the
can
whole
instruct
question
it.
with that light is whether or not the light of the fridge is
They're abanat.
the Rabbanah.
Correct. Yes,
That's where
yes,
it gets confusing, like, oh, this one I can say, this one I have. to
correct.
hint,
You
this
have to
one-
know,
Right.
indeed. Okay, very good. Okay, so that's very important to know. Another very important thing to know. And sometimes these things get a little bit more complicated, but I'll just give you examples so that you know, okay? Whenever there's a debate amongst the poskim, so we are strict and we don't do it. For example, the Rambam held that on Shabbat, when some liquid has already been cooked, you're allowed to take that liquid, even though it's freezing right now, meaning not literally, but like very cold, you're allowed to go ahead and take that liquid and heat it up again. Why? Because the Rambam held that there's no such thing as cooking after something has been cooked already, even if it's a liquid that's cold. Now, do we hold like that? No, we do not hold like that. We hold that if a person has a soup in the fridge and he wants to heat up that soup on Shabbat, he may not take that soup out of the fridge and put it on a hot plate on Shabbat. No, cannot do that. Okay?
Put it on top of a pot.
No, do not take it and put, you're not allowed to heat it, you're not allowed to put it somewhere where it's going to be heated to 112 degrees.
Wouldn't be.
What?
Like if you have a pot and then you put the pot of the soup on top of that, it's not going to be that one.
Okay. Well, basically, what my point is, if you want to heat up a soup to have it as a normal soup,
You can't put it.
so then you
directly on
cannot put it on the hot plate, right? We hold it, we do not agree with the Rambam's opinion on this, okay?
Could you ask a goy?
Oh, very good. So can you ask the guy to do it? So technically, comes along the Chida, Maran Chida, and he says that although we wouldn't be able to do it, but if you ask a goy to do it, it's fine. Why? Because the whole reason we don't do it is because it's a big machloket. Many rabbis hold that what the Rambam is saying is actually considered violating Shabbat. The Rambam and others disagreed. Says the Chida, so we're going to be strict for ourselves and not do it ourselves. But to ask a goy, no problem. Why? Because this is something that the Rambam and I think the Rashba and the Ram, they all said that you could do this yourself. So we don't do it ourselves because we're strict. But to ask a goy to do it, we would be lenient. So just to sum it up, whenever there's something that there's an argument over whether or not it's considered to be violating Shabbat, and some rabbis permit it even for a Jew to do, so then we would allow you to ask a goy to do it. Yeah.
What if the soup is like, dough? Put it in a certain, but it's very fatty and it's literally becoming hard.
Yeah.
Can you use it?
It's a good question. It's a good question. So I asked this question to Chacham David Yosef. He held that as long as it's solid, like totally solid,
Not, it's like,
then it's okay
Even if it turns liquid.
for Sephardic people, not for Ashkenazim. Okay, but it has to be like legit
yeah,
solid.
like jelly, like sometimes we cook it, it's like, in the fridge.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you keep it like
I'll be honest with you, I was very shocked by his answer But that's what he
Why
told me.
has to be like, there's a ratio of solid to liquid?
No. Okay, so let's not get into that now. That's a shul question. I hear you. Okay. Let's go. Now,
Sorry, what does Ben Ish Chai say regarding that?
what is Besh Chayzer? I don't think he addresses that, to be honest. Like, I don't know. Let's look at it again. Okay, sure. Okay, good. Now, whenever there's something for the purposes of the public, for example, let's say that the lights went out in shul. Somebody forgot to readjust the timer, and it's 9:30 a.m. Shabbat morning, and every light in the shul is out, right? So people can't read, people can't see the davening, they can't see the. It's hard, it's hard to deal with that. So in such a case, we say that you're allowed to ask the goy to turn on the light. The reason being that it's for the purposes of the mitzvah of the shul, and therefore it's considered to be okay for the purpose of a shul. Now, in many shuls, probably it would be a shul to shul anyway, because the lights are LED. So anyway, that's a leniency. Okay. So for the purposes of a community, you need, let's say the eruv is down, you need the goy to fix the eruv. That would be something you'd be allowed to tell the goy to do, because the community needs it. I just want to end off with one more point over here. When it comes to air conditioning and heat, so the poskim do say that when when it's very cold outside, the Shulchan Aruch says Hakol cholim etzel hakol. Everybody is considered sick when it comes to the cold, and in the same way that you're allowed to ask a goy to do something for somebody who is sick, when somebody is ill in bed, you have the goy do whatever is necessary for him. So too over here, this is considered something which can make a person sick. If he doesn't have heat, he can be sick. So therefore, if you need the goy to turn on the heat, the poskim say it's okay. And in the same way that the heat is okay, many are lenient regarding air conditioning in the summer, because they say that since we're so used to the AC, if we don't have it, we could really start not feeling well, and therefore we could ask the goy to turn on the AC in the summer as well. Rabbi Belsky paskin like that. Chacham Vodia paskin like that. Many people, many great poskim held that AC is the same thing as heat.
So you don't need to hint to them, you just tell them.
You
ask
just
them.
say it straight out. Yeah.
What category is that?
Sickness, that's another
Just-
category.
just sick.
Yeah, so in passing, I've kind of mentioned the idea that sickness is something that you can ask a goy to do anything for a person who's ill. Anything that is necessary for him. If somebody's ill in bed, you have the goy do whatever he needs. Okay.
So the AC is too cold, then we understand if someone's sick.
So if the AC is, in other words, if people are already starting to shiver in the house, so then it'd be better to hint if you could, right? Because it's preventing something from you.
So you can ask a boy to cook for you if you're sick?
If
You said anything,
correct.
It's like wondering where the.
Yeah, correct. You can have them
But Spartan kids have goy cook food.
in general. For the purposes of an ill person on Shabbat, there are leniencies. Yeah.
So that's my other question. Like Danish mushroom, you realize the slow cooker, the cholent or the rice cooker, the rice is parboiled.
Rice is what?
It's par cooked, like you could eat it, but it's still technically raw-ish.
Okay.
Would that be considered official alcohol if they plug it in for you and forgot to plug it in?
They didn't, in other words, you didn't do anything.
No, like you rinse it and like it gets a little softer after you wash.
You didn't do
it.
any part of
You
the
didn't
cooking.
really- Yeah, or maybe you cooked it for 5 minutes. You cooked it for like a few minutes, just to. You could eat it still, but it's hard.
It's like not.
It was almost, in other words, it's almost completely uncooked.
Yes.
And now you want the guy to turn it on for you, and that would be cooking it. Here. Yeah, it sounds like Bishul Akum. I'm not sure though, because you did start it off. The Gemara does say that as long as you took some part in it, that's considered to be good, but when it didn't really have any effect whatsoever, I don't know if that counts. I have to look, not anybody.
If they turn
I have
on,
to look back, I have to look it up.
let's say you forgot to turn on the black.
You mean the hot plate?
Yeah, the hot plate. like-
Okay, I want to make something clear, sorry. Blech is a sheet of metal that goes onto a fire. Okay? There's a fire, there are flames, actual flames. A blech is a sheet of metal that goes onto that. A hot plate is electronic, it gets plugged in.
So the
It's two
hot-
separate things, yeah.
Let's say they turn, let's say during the Bein Hashmashot, let's say you're lighting candles for some reason, usually maybe your husband turns on the blech, maybe something happened, he didn't, whatever, or I don't know, things happen, so then,
You want the
are
guy
you
to turn on
allowed
the
to
hot plate?
ask the boy to do that? Because isn't it like they're not allowed to open a fire for you to do
You mean-
anything?
You mean as far as bishul is concerned? So these
Yeah.
are things that are already cooked that you're putting there, right?
Yeah,
So as far as bishul is concerned, it wouldn't be called bishul because it's stuff that's already cooked that you're putting on that.
so they could always do that for you, it's not a problem.
Again, you have to know that in Hilchot Shabbat, it's okay.
But
Right?
let's
Is
say
it
on,
ben
like-
hashmashot? Is it shvut to shvut?
No,
for a
I'm
big
not
mitzvah?
talking about after the period of time that's passed, I'm just talking about, like, is there a problem if they?
No, it's not a
Cause
bishul
somebody
akum problem.
told me that it's like, be sure, like.
No, because the stuff you're putting on there, you already cooked. You already cooked your rice. You already cooked your
so-
stews. You already cooked all those things. So it's not bishul. You already cooked them.
Uh-huh, okay.
Let's say like Friday night, you notice that your children needs more water. Can you take water or ask the boy to take water from the urn that's already cooked and put it into the pot?
It's a great question.
But it's very.
So we can't do that. Ashkenazim could. Ashkenazim could. Sfaradim can't.
So you're saying we can't do that even like.
But what about a goy? I think you could ask a goy to do it.
But we can't do it ourselves, right? Like I can't take fucking like from the urn, put it in something, put it into the pot.
Correct.
Okay, but we could hint to the boy.
You could tell a goy.
Oh, you could tell.
You could tell a goy to do it because, like we said before, whenever there's something which some chachamim hold that a Jew is allowed to do,
Right.
and we hold that we can't, so then we're strict. But to ask a goy, we'll be lenient. Yeah, exactly. For that, yeah, for the goy to do it.
Like,
Correct.
this is like adding like hot water to a cholent.
Correct. Correct.
Can you even do that in the middle of cooking though? Or this is like when we're like taking it out and about to serve?
I'm talking about, let's say, what was the case? Friday night. You see
Friday
it's
night,
dry.
you notice
Friday
that-
night, you notice it's dry already. You want to make it, put more water. It should be moister, right? So we say that we hold, Sfaradim hold, you're not supposed to do that because we hold that in the air it cools off, and therefore when it goes into the pot, it gets cooked up again. It's a problem. What?
It's like warming up the soup.
Yeah, exactly. So we hold you can't do that on Shabbat. But the Ramah is lenient, and the Ashkenazim are lenient. They hold you could do that. So we won't do that. We could ask Goy to.
My mom is gonna be so happy.
Why?
This is like her number one thing when she cooks Friday night. She needs to adjust the soup, and she's like, I can't like function without it. So it's so good to know that like a boy.
What does she need to do?
And she makes her soup, and the water always absorbs Friday night, and she wants to add water into it. And like we always know, it's like I thought it was an issue just to open the lid.
If it's not cooked, and you open the lid, and you want to put it back on, that would be a problem.
But if it's already cooked, it's just cooking for like it gets more cooked as you go. Like the ingredients like melt more into each other.
If it's already cooked,
But it's
the
edible.
way that people would normally eat it,
Uh-huh.
then you wouldn't have a problem.
You can
I
open the
thought
lid.
opening the
Yeah.
lid is an issue because when you open it, the water that condensed from the lid
Right?
falls onto the
Hot plate
or glass,
Or the-
whatever,
or glass, right?
yeah, and
Yeah.
then that cooks it. That's what I.
It's possible, but you definitely don't have it in mind and not necessarily is it going to happen.
Like I
You
always
could
think of-
technically do it in a way that it just, what I do when I take off the lid from the chunk, I take it and I immediately move it to the sink. So just flies off to the
No,
sink like
whenever
that.
I wanna like take food for my kids, like before lunch or whatever, or anytime,
Mhm.
I always.
Take the thing off.
I always
okay.
take it off, nice and then
Right.
and then I put it back on.
It would be, I think you can avoid that if you simply do what you're doing, or maybe just kind of take it off to begin with. It shouldn't fall into the pot or onto the blech. What? The point that I'm making is like, if it's not cooked yet, if it's not cooked yet, and you then cover it again, that's an act of cooking. We'll get to this stuff when we learn
Because one
Bishul
time I was
B'Dar
at a
Hashem.
relative's house,
Yeah.
and they wanted to take food from one of the kids or whatever, and one of her daughters just held it in the air. The other one opened the lid, took some,
Right.
and then put it, the food was fully cooked already.
Okay, so then there's no problem. Very good.
And then, yeah, but she didn't open it from the, she took it, like, she didn't even put it down on the table, she had.
Okay. Very, we'll learn that stuff.
I
B'Dar
don't
Hashem when
know,
we get
then I
there.
was like, why are you doing that? And she's like, because the water from the lid is gonna.
Valid.
fall.
Okay.
I don't know.
So again, we'll talk about these things. We're going to be B'Dar Hashem. Okay, we'll stop over here. Thank you very much. Chazakim u'bruchim.